911. What are you? That's me! That's me! That's me!
Whoa, 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 everybody. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. It's real vile time. That's right, kiddies. It's the G to the E to the R to the M. The T stands for the, but you already knew that. And we're about to rip it up in a modern way. So you know it's got to be Mr. Germ T. Ripper. And of course, I got my main man. That is the Prime Minister, the Sinister, Mr. Ruthless Chris. Ruthless Chris, tell these people what's really going on.
What's really going on, according to my boy Phil, early spring.
Yes. Yes.
Early spring, that's what we're talking about, baby. And of course, can't go anywhere without the Tower of the Hour, the Princess of Power, the Killer Kelly Miller. What's up, Killer Kelly Miller?
Not much. Hey, girls. Hey. How you doing?
Hey, girls. Hey, indeed. And on this week's episode of Real Vile, we're going to be singing Happy Anniversary, Happy Anniversary, Happy Anniversary, Happy Anniversary. It's 31 years since Peter Jackson's classic Dead Alive has been released onto the North American shores. Man, oh man, with an original title like Brain Dead and the goriest zombie movie horror comedy ever, in my opinion. I don't know. There might be more.
I think it's might be.
It's going to be a blast to talk about. But before we do, let's catch up with what everybody's been up to in the past week. Hey, Killer Kelly, what have you been up to in the past week?
Oh, it's been a week. Me and Chris and our friend Bobo went over to Puxatawny to visit, the legendary Puxatawny Phil, and let him there it is. Let him give us his weather prediction. Early spring. Yeah, yep. That was a hell of a night. I all around had a good weekend. It was a good time.
Very, very cool. That sounds like a wild and wacky adventure. Hey, Ruthless Chris, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, yeah, we did the Puxatawny trip. It was a lot of driving. Got some good food. Hung out with some locals. It was definitely a fun experience. Aside from that, I've been kind of lazy around the house the rest of the time, gearing up for Chicago.
Fair enough. That sounds like I can't wait to see you guys again, because Chicago is Ruthless Pro RPW loving country, and that Akira versus Dr. Redacted match looks like it will be sick AF. So I can't wait for that. And, as far as me, I haven't been up to too much myself, just chilling like a villain, dancing with penicillin. You know how it goes sometimes. Just enjoying.
The penicillin dance?
Yes, a penicillin dance. If you don't know what a penicillin dance is, you probably haven't stuck your wiener into too many strange holes. Anyways, anywho.
This is going off the rails fast, Jerm.
Speaking of the rails, let's get this terror train back on the rails and talk about some horror movies. Choo choo, Killer Kelly Miller, what have you been watching?
I found this one on Shudder. It is short and sweet at 57 minutes. I was like, okay, we can squeeze this in. This is Host 2020. I believe it was a Shudder original, directed by Rob Savage, who also did Dashcam and the newer Boogeyman movie that came out last year. It was decent. Dashcam, I liked Dashcam. That was a fun one. I don't know. I've seen a lot of hate on that one online, but back to Host.
The main character is so goddamn unlikable.
Yeah. But back to Host. This one's, like I said, short, sweet, straight to the fucking point. Basically, it was filmed in 2020 during, COVID, obviously. It was another one of those movies. But I think this one is better than most of them that I've seen. Like it's all through a Zoom meeting. It's a bunch of girls and their one friend. They hire like a medium to coach him through a seance, via Zoom and shit. Well, they start fucking around and summon something they don't want to fucking summon, and shit just goes fucking AWOL from there. Basically, like I said, it's straight to the point. I feel like if this movie was any longer, it would have lost something because like they didn't fuck around with like relationships like they do in the one, like this girl's dating this guy and this girl's getting jealous. Like they didn't fuck around with any of that. Like it was just straight to the fucking point. Like, oh shit, you summoned something bad and now shit's going fucking AWOL. And I don't know. I really liked it. I gave it 3.5. I might even lean more into 4. I think I gave it 4 on Letterboxd actually, but I would recommend this one. Like I said, all the ones that I've seen, like based around like these Zoom or like, the little internet ones, this one's probably one of the best ones for sure. Yeah.
Ruthless Chris, have you seen Host?
I sure have. Out of all the pandemic films, I think this is probably one of the most effective because they actually were able to make it where each individual actor was on their own. And it doesn't take away or detract. It doesn't feel like that's what they were trying to do. The scares are really good. They did a lot of really clever stuff for just having people on computer screens talking.
Like
yeah. I mean, like movies like Unfriended tried to do that. Like there were some other ones that really dropped the ball. With that same concept, and this one I thought was really, really strong. And yeah, at a lean 56 minutes, it gets right to it and it gets good. And I mean, it's all killer, no fillers, no fat in this thing. I loved every minute of it. I gave it 4 stars.
Yep.
Well, I have not seen Host, and I think with 4 stars from both of you, I should probably give it a chance. I remember when it first came out, everybody was buzzing about it on Twitter and social media, all the horror movie people that I kind of worked with, and whenever something gets buzzed about a lot, I usually shy away from it. But since both of you like it, maybe I'll have to check it out. But if you're listening to this and you haven't seen Host yet, check it out because both Kelly and Chris say 4 stars, and it's streaming on Shudder. Let's keep the train chugging along. Ruthless Chris, what have you been watching, baby?
So I'm going to go with the bad one first, just to get that out of the way. This has 2 different names. When I watched it, it was on Tubi under the name Chupacabra Territory. But on Letterboxd, it is filed under the much better name Lair of the Beast. This movie sucked. It's a found footage movie. Which Jeremiah, I already know you're checking out just on those words. But, found footage doesn't bother me. I think a lot of times if found footage is done well, it can add like a sense of realism or whatever to it. This one, it had like really unlikable characters. The acting was bad. I'm a big Chupacabra fan. Like they did do some cool little Chupacabra jump scares and stuff, but like there was like a whole subplot going on of this like guy with a gas mask wandering around in the middle of the woods killing people, and then he was like they hinted that he was going to be a hero at one point, and then nothing happens with him. They don't pan it out, they don't explain it. The last 15 minutes of this is entertaining, but it's really hard to get there, and there's much better movies like this out there. I would suggest something like Oswong or something like that. This one just really didn't do it for me. It was a slog to get through. Even for the 10, last 10 minutes, it was entertaining. It was all right. And like they were really taking some swings on this thing, but like nothing really panned out. It was dumb. So would not recommend. I gave it 1.5, and I'm only being that generous just because the last 10, 15 minutes did have some cool stuff going on. But yeah, I would avoid that. So that's Chupacabra Territory / Lair of the Beast on Tubi.
Well, we salute you, Chris, because it sounds like you watched this one, so we don't have to. Kelly, have you heard of this movie?
Nope. Have
Nope,
not.
me neither. But I'm glad that Chris watched it so we don't have to. But in the meantime, we can enjoy and celebrate the 31st anniversary of Dead Alive, Dead Alive, Dead Alive. But only after we get done talking about what we've been watching. We're going to keep this train chugging along as I talk about a movie I just got done watching. And boy, oh boy, did I not like it. I hope everybody's ready to salute me because this is a 2020 film, no budget, and it shows. I mean, I'm usually like forgiving, and I understand that these are amateur actors, they're, amateur filmmakers, and I tried to be nice. The name of this movie is Screwdriver, and it's about like after a parts store opens in town and sends a man out of business, he takes revenge on the townspeople by killing them off one by one. I understand that this is a horror comedy, and I got the humor. It just didn't land for me because I there was a lot of like overuse of profanity is always a turnoff for me. And then when they started just throwing around homophobic slurs for no real reason, it was just like, come on, guys. Like, I can overlook the bad acting, I can overlook the bad special effects. It could have been a fun shot on video, no budget movie, like a bunch of hillbillies killing each other for no real reason. Once you watch the whole thing, there's no real reason. Yeah, and I sat through the whole 70 minutes of it, and yeah, I could barely make it through. The only plus side is that there are a couple big fat guys, and that's basically what drew me to this film. Besides the 70-minute time frame, seeing fat guys always with beards is fair enough. So I give it 1.5 stars just because the fat guys in it, and it's streaming on Prime Video and Tubi. I watched it on Tubi, and I'm guessing neither of you have heard of 2020's Screwdriver.
Nope.
I have.
You have?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm on I forget what the name of the group is. There's like a Facebook group where it's like people that celebrate shot on camcorder kind of films, and I guess that's one of them. And there was somebody like really trying to pitch it. By the way they were talking, I'm kind of assuming they might have something to do with it, but they were really talking it up, and then that led me to like look it up, yada yada yada. I watched the trailer and I decided it wasn't for me. But yeah, I've heard of it. I just decided to pass on it.
Well, smart move. I watched it, so you don't have to.
Both jumped out a grenade this week.
Yes. Yeah, it's shot on video, which I'm not a fan of. It's no budget, which more times than not, I'm not a fan of. And yeah, it's just not good. 1.5 stars. Tubi, check it out or don't. I suggest you don't. And you might have also heard of it too, because it seemed like some of the people were involved in independent wrestling. Just, one of the guys has like a replica belt hanging around, and I Googled some of the people's names, and they were friends with people in the scene in Tennessee. But besides that, no, not good. Thumbs down. And we're going to keep this train chugging along so that we can keep a happy anniversary going. Let's talk about some movies we do like. And hopefully, Killer Kelly, you got one that you liked?
All right, this one was. All right, this is the new one, 2024's Night Swim. I can't say that I enjoyed it very much, honestly. All right, it's a haunted pool. That's it. That's the movie. No, I'm joking. But basically, pretty much, the way it starts up, they set it out. I mean, they set it up like, the history of it. Some little kid dies there, and then they cut to the new family that's moving into the property and all excited about the house. The dad is a pro baseball player, and he was injured. I don't remember exactly what his injury was, but water therapy is one of the things that he needs to do. So he's swimming in the pool and stuff. Right away, as they're fixing the pool, you get all these little like hints, like they haven't swam in this in 15 years, and like dad cuts his hand real bad, like something stabs him. I don't know. And I don't know. They keep seeing like when they're underwater, people that they think they know over the edge and shit. Dad's shit kind of starts healing himself, and it takes like a weird possession turn. It's really what's the word? I know what's coming. My mouth.
Predictable.
Predictable, yes. It's very fucking predictable, and it's cliche. It's predictable. I thought the monsters were pretty lame, honestly, and like there's parts I'm like, how deep is this fucking pool? Just from like the camera angles. Like, what is this? Yeah, I gave it a 3, and I think a 3 is being generous. It's probably more of like a 2.5, but. Yeah. I mean, I thought the acting and stuff was well. The cinematography was pretty good. All of that stuff was decently. It was well done, but it was kind of lame. It was kind of lame.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've heard some good things. I've heard some bad things. But if you didn't like it, you didn't like it, baby. How many stars did you say you gave Night Swim?
2.5, 3. I mean, it's worth a watch if you want to watch a haunted pool movie.
And where did you watch Night Swim?
I think you can watch it on. You gotta rent it right now. It's not streaming anywhere.
No, they just put it up on something. I forget.
Did they? Yeah. Wait till it's streaming somewhere. I didn't see that.
They just put it up somewhere. I think like Friday or something.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's mediocre.
Ruthless Chris, have you seen Night Swim?
No, I passed on it almost immediately. Blumhouse kind of has a feeling with me, kind of how I treated Full Moon when I was in high school, where like I know the majority of it's not for me, but there's going to be some heavy hitters mixed in there, and I'm getting real good at just like kind of sussing out which one's going to be a Malignant and which one's going to be a Night Swim.
Malignant is great.
So I didn't bother. And, she's like, oh, like she was talking to me earlier. She's like, it's a haunted pool. How good could they make it? And I'm like, yo, they make haunted everything movies with less of a budget that are great. There's Deathbed. There's like, Death Spa.
Right. I have Death Spa. That's a good one. Even the one I just watched too was fucking, it just took place and they're fucking on a screen like this. It was better than that one. Sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off.
It's okay. But what I'm saying is like it doesn't take money to make a good haunted house film or a haunted whatever. I just think it's a bad concept in general. And you know what? I bet you in the right hands it probably could have been pretty good, but I decided, not for me. Maybe I'll watch it one of these days when I have like nothing else to do. But
yeah,
haunted pool, no bueno.
Fair enough. If you're interested in checking out Night Swim, though, sounds like it's streaming to rent, and 3 stars isn't a bad rating. Give or take. Some people like it, some people don't like it. 2.5 still isn't bad. But either way, check it out if you want to. Check it out.
The movies I like.
Do what you want to do.
I'm curious on the new ones that are popping up. Well, I'll give it a watch.
Fair enough. Exactly. Well, we're going to keep this train chugging along so we could get a happy anniversary into Dead Alive. Ruthless Chris, what you got next for us, baby?
So I've been curious about this movie for a long time, and I finally pulled the trigger on it, and boy, I'm glad I did. I did it like right at the right time, because this one is a slow burn. Like not a lot happens through most of it. It's a lot of setup, and then this thing just explodes at the end. This is One Dark Night, 1982, by Tom McLaughlin. What you have here, I watched it on Tubi as well, but what you have here is there's a famous psychic who they find dead in his apartment, and his apartment's in a very weird state. Like there's plates embedded into the walls and like shit stuck into the ceiling, and they end up finding all these dead girls in his apartment too. And they're like, oh, this is really fucking weird. And they end up burying him in this mausoleum. Cut to, you got a group of high school kids. There's a girl trying to enter what is known as the Sisterhood, which is just these 3 bully women that have matching jackets that treat people like shit. And they decide to make this girl stay the night in this mausoleum where this psychic has been buried. It's a lot of setup, but it's done very well. This is a 1982 movie, and it definitely shows its age, but The special effects in this thing are awesome. You know, I'm going to give like a hint of it, but like not ruin everything. But basically, he wanted to die because it would make his psychic powers stronger. And now she's stuck in this mausoleum with basically like the Akira of zombies. What's really cool about it is instead for the zombies, instead of having, you know, people in prosthetics and shit, they did it all with puppets, and it somehow all worked. Like it was all just like sculptures and, you know, like practical effects, and, you know, like, so that everything actually looks like really rotted out. And there's like maggots dripping off everything. Everything's really goopy. They do this really cool repeated gag where when the mausoleum crypts break open, the coffins like slowly slide out and slide to the ground, and then they open up, and then the next one comes out, you know, and it starts to become this like overwhelming horde. This one was really cool. I don't know how this one's not a little more well known. Maybe because it is a slow burn, because nothing happens in this thing up until the end. I mean, just like a lot of character drama, a lot of building, getting to know your characters, yada yada yada. But the ending makes the whole thing worthwhile. I loved every minute of this thing. I give it a strong 4, if not 4.5. And yeah, that was on Tubi. One Dark Night.
One Dark Night. I'm writing that down.
Yeah, One Dark Night on Tubi. This is a classic movie. I remember that I've watched it at least once. I gave it 3.5 stars. And it's funny because when you said the name, I know that I watched it, but I couldn't remember much about it until you started talking about the synopsis of the film. And I was like, oh yeah, I really liked it. It kind of felt very Italian at the time.
Yes.
So yeah, and if you like Italian horror movies, especially Fulci, you're gonna dig this. So I gave it 3.5 stars. Definitely worth a watch. One Dark Night on Tubi. With that, I think we're gonna keep this train chugging along, and I'm gonna talk about a movie I watched so that we can get to happy anniversary of Dead Alive. We are gonna talk about, or I'm gonna talk about 2016's action horror thriller directed by Chad Farron, Parasites. Parasites is a film about 3 friends that find themselves lost on Skid Row and are captured by an angry homeless gang. I love this movie. This is one of the movies that I reviewed when it was originally released for Daily Grindhouse, and I gave it a really good review at the time. And I got really excited when TerrorVision released a physical copy of this on a collector's edition Blu-ray. This is if you like sleazy exploitation movies, then you'd be a big fan of Chad Farron's films. And this is what introduced me to his filmmaking. It reminded me a lot of Judgment Night, and kind of like Judgment Night meets Street Trash, because it kind of has those homeless characters from Street Trash, but then the whole story and setup of Judgment Night. And it is a sleazy movie. It is down and dirty. It has a little bit of a Warriors feel, just because the main character, the main protagonist, is running from this homeless gang the entire night. The end, I don't want to ruin it. I was going to say what it reminds me of, but if I tell you that, that's going to ruin it. And I really don't like the ending, but at the same time, if it ended any other way, it wouldn't have the same impact. So, it's a great movie. It doesn't look like it's streaming anywhere, which I think is strange, because most of TerrorVision's films are streaming most places, and most of Chad Farron's other films are streaming on other platforms. But it's definitely worth getting a physical copy of if you can't find it streaming anywhere. But that's called Parasites. It's by Chad Farron, and it's out in 2016. I give it 4 stars. If it is streaming somewhere, please let us know. But have either of you guys seen this one or heard about it?
I have not. No.
I'm
interested.
It's really odd that you brought this up, because a lot of times when I'm watching a movie, I'll kind of dive into my letterbox a little bit. What else they've been in, what else does director make, yada yada yada. And for some reason, Parasites keeps like popping up in my little dives, and I thought it had a really cool box art. And I would have actually watched it this week if I could have found it online anywhere. But like, I watched this really okay gangster movie the other day, and I was like, who's the guy playing the mob boss? And then apparently he executive produced horror movies, and Parasites was one of them. And then some other movie I was watching, I looked up what other movies this guy had been in. Parasites is one of them. It kept popping up. It's almost like Kismet, like the world was telling me to watch it. So I definitely want to check it out, but no, I haven't seen it.
Very cool. Well, it's definitely worth watch. I give it 4 stars. And if you are into sleazy horror movies or exploitation films, check out Chad Farron's other work, because I did watch a few of his other films that are streaming on Tubi and Amazon and so forth. And all the actors, the whole cast, except for the protagonists, are all like stalwarts in old exploitation and horror movies. So that's another reason to watch this movie. But I don't want to get too carried away. I want to keep this train chugging along so that we can get to a happy anniversary to Dead Alive. Killer Kelly Miller, one more round, if you please. Let us know what you've been watching, baby.
This one that I watched, it's been on my list for a while, and I finally got around to watching it. This is 2015's We Are Still Here. It's on Plex, Tubi, Prime. Written and directed by Ted Geoghegan. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ted. I'm sorry. But he worked on Queer for Fear. He wasn't a director on that. I think he was one of the producers. And Satanic Panic, also not a director, but also worked on that movie. This follows a family, or 2 parents. The mom's played by Barbara Crampton. They moved to a New England countryside after the death of their son. And, kind of to start a new life and stuff, into this big old house. And, the mom thinks that one of the reasons they moved away is because she thought, she was hearing her son, like his spirit was around and stuff. So when they moved to the new place, there's some shit going down, and she's just assuming it's the son. Well, after meeting the neighbors and the people in the town, they realize there's a lot more going on with this property, and they bring in some some mediums and stuff to check the situation out. Without getting too deep into this is a haunted house movie, but it's so much more than a haunted house movie. Like, it gives you suspicion. Yeah, you're right. Maybe not so much more, but it gives you like some suspicions of the neighbors. Like, there's a lot going in this town. There's more than just a ghost in this house. You just get that feeling, for sure. I'd recommend it. I thought this was very effective. It has a very retro style feel, like 70s, 80s kind of feel to it. I thought it was really good. It kind of turns into like it builds up into like a bloodbath kind of at the end. It's a good time. I liked it. I gave it 3.5. Might even border on to 4 with this one, but it's worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, we are still here, right? That's what's...
Yes, we are still here.
Yeah. I remember when I watched this when it first came out, and because there was a lot of buzz about it. I was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah.
And I really dug this one as well. I haven't had it logged because I haven't watched it since it first came out, but I would say 4 stars.
Yeah, I think I gave it 4. I kept switching between 3.5 and 4 on my letterbox. So I'm like, I didn't think the monster or the ghosts, I don't know, visually weren't, the great, but other than that, I think that was my only complaint. And that's hardly a complaint. They were still good.
Yeah, I think the CGI, if I remember correctly, was kind of off on those, especially towards the end. But otherwise, it was a decent film. Chris, I'm guessing you've seen We Are Still Here, right?
Yeah. I love this movie. I got a copy right when it came out from Family Video. And I watched, I really, really loved it. I'm starting to learn that anything Michael Fassbender will act in is usually pretty good.
Oh, yeah,
along with being a great director, like when you see that guy pop up in an indie film, there's a reason he's in it, and he's got a really good eye for what he picks and what he's going to be in. And this is another one of those that was just dynamite. There's a lot more going on under the surface than just a haunted movie or a haunted house movie. Cool little twist at the end.
Yeah.
Great little just no budget flick where the no budget doesn't hurt it at all, besides maybe the CGI you were talking about. But I don't even remember that part. Like, I remembered most of it being practical effects and like char effects and all kinds of crazy shit. But I haven't watched it in a while. With that being said, whoever borrowed my copy of that, give it back so I can watch it again.
It's not me. I just watched it on Tubi.
I would have said, Kelly, give my copy back if I thought it was you that had it. I know it's not you. I think it was my buddy Adrian, but I'm not sure. I let somebody borrow it, and I haven't seen it since we lived on Fairfax.
Yeah, I thought that Ty West did this, but it's not him who directed this.
I think it
Has a very
does.
Ty West feel to it, though.
Ted Geoghegan.
You said it worse this time around than you did the first time.
It's okay.
This poor son of a bitch's name.
Ted, sorry.
We're sorry, Ted, but at the same time, we love your movies, so it makes it okay. We're gonna keep this train chugging along so we can get to the anniversary party. And hey there, Mr. Ruthless Chris, what you been watching, baby?
So this is my pick of the week. I will say the one I talked about before is probably a more well-constructed horror movie if you're talking just horror. This one's kind of a total package. It's got sleaze. It's got bad effects. It's funny. It's got like a real dark sense of humor to it, but it also has like this really interesting and deep subtext to it. This is 1990s Mom by Patrick Rand. What you have here, and talk about Michael Fassbender a minute ago. He's not in this, but I'm starting to realize that anything Brian James is in, I really enjoy too. You may not know him from me saying his name, but I guarantee if I showed you his face, you'd recognize him. He was like one of the replicants, Blade Runner. He was the first one that didn't pass the Blade Runner test, but he pops up at everything. He was like the redneck in Southern Comfort, everything. And this is one of his swing for the fences performances. He's a blind werewolf. They don't come out and say werewolf, but it's very heavily implied. And he is basically stalking the streets of LA at night, feeding on people. And there's this old lady who is going to rent out a room, and she decides to rent it out to this guy, right? And through a bunch of follies, she ends up getting bit by him and turned into a werewolf herself. It's like a little sweet old lady. Like we're talking in her 80s and 90s, right? So what it turns into from there is like her and this guy working together to kind of like figure out what life is like now and how they feed and how they get away with stuff. But then her son gets involved. The original werewolf gets out of the picture in an interesting way. And now the son is trying to lock her up and contain her to keep her from killing people. It's really interesting when she turns into a werewolf, because when she does it, they make her a little old lady werewolf, like it's all white haired and shit. This has like a lot of sleaze to it, like a lot of back alley scenes that like are lit with like purples and blues and shit. But it has a really interesting subtext to where the actual story is what the effects are of drugs on a loved one and what it does to your family, and like how your actions affect other people. Because like they use werewolves as the metaphor in this, but like the son's trying to keep her locked up. She's doing anything she can to like go out and kill. He's trying, like, he loves her. He's thinking about helping her, but he can't. Like all this like that, and then his life starts falling apart because of trying to help her out. So yeah, this is like a fun sleaze movie, but there's like a lot more to it too under the subtext. So I would highly recommend it. This was like my favorite one of the week I watched. So yeah, that was Mom, 1990. Watching on Tubi. Fun stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, I've always wanted to watch this one, but I never really knew what it was about, and I always passed on it. But now that you've watched it and you gave it a good star rating, and everything you said sounded like something I'd be interested in checking out, I'm definitely going to scoot on over to Tubi and watch Mom. Mm-hmm. Hey, Kelly, have you seen Mom?
No, but he messaged me about it like right as he was watching it, and I love me a good werewolf movie. I think I'm also going to check this one out.
Very, very cool. Well, before we get to the 31st anniversary party of Peter Jackson's Dead Alive, I've got one more movie to talk about. and it was kind of getting into the mood of Dead Alive. I watched another horror comedy, over the top horror comedy with outrageous bonkers gore, that's from New Zealand. This one came out in 2006, and it is directed by Jonathan King, written by Jonathan King as well. It is Black Sheep. And this is not the one with the comedy and the funny
Chris
jokes.
Farley.
Although Chris Farley, yes, this was not the one with Chris Farley. This one is about an experiment in genetic engineering that turns harmless sheep into bloodthirsty killers that terrorize sprawling New Zealand farm. Holy guacamole! Now, I'd seen this when it first came out, and I bought it. I bought a physical copy. I've watched it a couple times since then, but I forgot how much fun this movie is, and I love how like they combine genres of sci-fi, action, horror, comedy, and I think this is like one of the more modern. I know it came out almost 20 years ago now because it came out in 2006, which is crazy to say out loud. But this movie is totally bonkers and totally fun. It's just the gore is outrageous, and that they incorporate sort of zombie tropes. They incorporate werewolf tropes, and just so much crazy. I know I keep saying it, gore, that it's so much fun. And it kind of reminded me, like the humor kind of reminded me of Shaun of the Dead. And I know that it actually has some of the actors that were in Dead Alive. And because I was looking on streaming services for Dead Alive, which it's not available streaming anywhere, but it did have some of the similar actors. And so I was like, hey, I haven't watched Black Sheep in a while. Let me check it out again. And I fell back in love with this movie because it's so much fun. It's streaming pretty much everywhere for free. Freevee, Plex, Tubi, blah, 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 blue, blue, blue. And it's definitely worth a watch, especially if you haven't seen it yet. It is so much fun. And I give it 5 stars, hard 5 stars. I love Black Sheep. You guys, I'm guessing, have seen Black Sheep?
Yeah, I believe I seen it when it first fucking came out. Like I forgot this movie existed until like you were talking. I just looked it up on IMDb. I was like, I'll be damned. I remember that movie. Yeah, it was silly. I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember it being silly as fuck. I don't know. I might go back and watch that one too, just because fucking nostalgia, I guess.
This is a personal favorite of mine. I've probably watched it over a dozen times. Kelly, I showed it to you, originally. I remember showing it to you.
Makes sense.
Yeah, this movie rocks real hard. It's tongue firmly in cheek. The were sheep. There's a man who turns into a were sheep. That happens in this. That rocks. Everything about this movie rocks. I can't recommend it enough. This is a 4.5 all day for me. Guilty pleasure. This is one of those ones I reach for when I don't know what else to watch and I'm in the mood for something real light. It's like this, or like Frankenhooker, or like Brain Damage, something real dumb like that. Yeah, Black Sheep all day.
And now for our feature presentation.
And with that, we're gonna take this train on into Spoiler Town. If you haven't seen Dead Alive, you're probably a loser, but I'm guessing you have seen it because you're listening to this program, and only cool cats from the world beyond have listen to Real Vile. So you've probably seen Dead Alive, aka Brain Dead. Happy anniversary to Peter Jackson's Dead Alive. Came out in 1992 on this date. It's 31 years since this amazing film hit North American shores. And if you're not familiar with Dead Alive, it is a New Zealand comedy, fantasy, horror movie, and it's about a young man's mother who is bitten by a Sumerian rat monkey. She gets sick and dies, at which time she comes back to life, killing and eating dogs, nurses, friends, and neighbors. Oh my goodness gracious gravy. This movie is so... If you are not familiar with this movie, you don't know what fun is. This is one of the most fun movies ever, and I rewatched it last night before, just to refresh my mind, and it was Not a lot that I forgot, but at the same time, I laughed my ass off just like the first time I watched it in high school. I can't. I wish this was streaming somewhere because I feel like if there are people out there that haven't seen this, they need to see it. It's out of print. It's not
YouTube.
streaming anywhere. And
YouTube.
This is a what?
YouTube. I watched
The
it on
uncut
YouTube.
version is on YouTube.
Full
That's how
version on YouTube.
Look at that. Old Germ T Ripper. Man, I was giving out the wrong information every week. People were getting bummed out when I was saying this isn't available anywhere, that it's out of print. Evidently, Killer Kelly and Ruthless Chris are letting the people know, rejoice, rejoice. You can watch the uncut, brain dead version of this movie on YouTube. But before I keep going on, before I keep gushing like the zombies and people in this movie do, gushing with gore, why don't you guys talk about Dead Alive, aka Brain Dead, a little bit?
So the reason I watched it on YouTube is I pulled out my DVD. As you can see, I have the brain dead version. I no longer have the original DVD player I have. I use my Xbox, and this is a PAL or Region 2. And I was not able to watch this, so I was bummed out. And then I started looking for alternate ways to watch it, and Miss Kelly informed me it was on YouTube. So yes, the brain dead cuts uncut is on YouTube. You can watch it, and it looks great.
It does.
And, as somebody who is very, very familiar with the original, like, unrated version, the only difference I noticed in the uncut version, because there wasn't more gore. There wasn't. All the gore is in the unrated version. There's more dialogue. Like, the zookeeper in the beginning, the guy that's, like, trying to steal the monkey, he's got a couple extra lines. When they run into the punks in the
cemetery
graveyard, they got a couple little extra lines, stuff like that. It's extra lines. It's all that's extra that's in the unrated version. But this movie is pure joy. It is pure joy for a gore aficionado. And when I was growing up, they used to do big campaigns for video stores, back in the video store days. And I remember they did one for Dead Alive. And I used to go to this place called Video Connection. And you walked in and they had a giant banner right in front of the checkout counter, and it was the cover of Dead Alive. And I was like, wow, that's a really cool cover. The zombie with the face inside the mouth.
Yeah.
And I got real fascinated with it. And, my parents wouldn't let me rent it. And then finally, one of the clerks I ended up becoming friends with, started letting me rent whatever the fuck I wanted, even though I was 12 or 13 riding my bike up there. And so this was an early splatter flick. I think this might have been one of the first actual splatter flicks I got to see, and boy, did it change me. This one, there's so many interesting characters. Let's just put the gore and all that aside.
Mhm.
Everybody is interesting and fun to watch in this. Every character,
Mhm.
from the main guy who is the bumbling, lovable idiot, to Lapita, who is the undersexed, overly attractive, store clerk. Perverted uncle. I could not get enough of the priest. But also today watching it, now that I actually know what he looks like, I realized for the first time Peter Jackson is in this fucking movie. He plays the embalmer's assistant who eats the sandwich after the cranial blowouts. But yeah, man, I mean this thing just encompasses my childhood. I've watched it a million times. I had a worn out VHS of it. I have a DVD, a regular DVD of it around here somewhere I couldn't find. That's why I went for the brain dead version. I ended up going with the YouTube, but this is there is no better version of what good horror comedy can be than Dead Alive, in my opinion. It toes the line of actually having certain parts that are terrifying, and then juxtaposed by a man having a fist fight with a baby. Part. I've read a lot of people that seem suspiciously cool with it. He's whacking this thing off the ground, stomping on it, and they're just like, sheesh. Is anybody getting involved?
Well,
Yeah,
in that scene, as he's walking away, he looks back at the ladies that are staring at him, and he goes, hyperactive. And they're like, oh, okay.
Oh, okay,
I like how the bum, there's a bum drinking behind him, and he's watching the other baby. He's like, hell!
Yeah, the homeless guy, I totally loved seeing him beat the crap out of that zombie baby.
He was fucking that baby
Fuck.
up. It looked like it looked like
me.
it looked like baby Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine.
Right? And I think it's probably, I'm 100% sure it's the only movie where a zombie priest and a zombie nurse have sex with each other and have a zombie baby, and a crazy, nutty zombie baby that, I'm 100% shocked that no studios like Trick or Treat Studios have put out like a life-size replica of that zombie baby, because I would buy one. I don't care how much it was, and I would have it I would have it sitting in one of my theater seats in my basement. It's just such an amazing, one of the amazing characters. But like you were saying, all the characters in this movie are amazing and quirky and developed. They're not really one-dimensional, and if they are one-dimensional, they're at least interesting to watch. Because like the veterinarian that gives them the tranquilizers is a Nazi, and he's fooling the entire time.
That one scene, but it's so memorable.
It is.
I'm not the doctor, but I am a veterinarian, so I can give you tranquilizers.
What do you think I am?
Tranquilizers. I do not have sedatives.
And so many one-liners too. Like, you cannot watch this movie and not remember, I kick ass for the Lord.
Yeah.
I think from here on out, anytime I got to take a piss, now I'm going to say I got to take a wicked slash.
Yeah, that shot of the uncle trying to take a piss, and he's like making like, I don't know if we've ever seen a scene from the toilet's point of view trying to capture this guy take a piss, which I think is
and
funny.
He's got like that device, like almost like he's like Dustin Hoffman from Blue Velvet. It's like what the fuck was that thing? Was that like an early inhaler? What the hell was that?
I think it was, because that was an interesting fact. I'm sure I picked up on it before, but I really noticed it this time, that this is also a period piece. Like, it take place in like the 50s or 60s, like the costumes and everything, and they're using a record player, but the costumes are so precise to the period that this is supposed to take place in, that I thought that was a really unique take as well.
I think there's just so much other shit going on, like that just leaves your mind like almost instantly, But
I think today also was the first time I actually noticed it. And the other thing I noticed, and now I've seen this dozens of times, was all the uses of miniatures that I never picked up on before. Like, none of those trolleys, aside from the one he jumps on, were real. And there was like fake neighborhood sets and stuff that he like seamlessly put in. I'd never picked up on that before, but now that I know more about like filmmaking stuff, like I picked up on a lot more than there was like some really cool miniature work. And then one of the other cool things is that they made the full size Vera going up that stairs at that end scene. They were like pulling that giant fucking thing up those stairs. Like, that wasn't a miniature. That's wild.
That is, the effects in this movie are absolutely wild, and I think that's why it's such a cult classic. I know that's why, like, I when I started getting into fucked up horror movies, like I was about 12 or 13, probably around the time I met this guy, into like trauma movies and shit. That's when I was first introduced to this, and I've also seen it dozens of times, but it never gets old. It's been at least a decade since I watched it before today, and like Chris said, now that I know more about filmmaking and stuff, some of the shots in that movie were fantastic. Like, even when he's coming down with the lawnmower, like the blades just spinning at this movie holds a special spot in my heart.
There's a shot they did that I never picked up on before, but when he's grinding up the zombies, where they had built a camera rig where you could see the blade spinning in front of the camera, and it is the camera view, or the lawnmower view going towards the zombies. Like, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's like the more you watch this, or like the older you get and you watch this, you can appreciate it for other reasons than just the incredible over-the-top gore, because that is like the first thing you notice when you're a teenager and you watch this thing,
Mm-hmm.
and because it starts off right off the bat, the Sengawa, whatever the natives say when they're trying
You
to
got
catch her.
the bite.
Yes, the bite. Because the rat monkey bites him and they chop off his hand and they chop off his arm and then they notice a scratch on his face and they chop off his head, evidently, because the camera cuts and it goes to the title screen, which I think is incredible too.
Oh, by the way, I'll let you get right back to what you're saying, but just that is another difference I noticed when on the Brain Dead one, the letters are made of brain and blood. So as the blood drips down, the letters itself are written in brain. That's another one I noticed that I picked up on, or that was a difference, but it was cool because that's when they also chopped into his head. I was like, oh, I see what you did there.
That's awesome.
Well, as many times as we've been teased as horror fans over the years that this will come out on Blu-ray or this will come out on 4K UHD, whoever winds up putting this out, because it will eventually get put out on a collector's edition Blu-ray or 4K UHD, and I'm sure it will be packed with extras. I am excited to see that beginning on the big screen in my basement because that sounds really cool. And another really cool thing about this is that rat monkey that is done with stop motion animation, because it's another thing that you don't see a lot nowadays is stop motion animation in creatures. The monkeys that are the real monkeys that are in a cage next to him.
Yeah,
they're going after an apple core, and the rat monkey gets the apple core, and then he tears the monkey's arm off and rips him apart, and that's how it leads into Lyle's mother getting scratched, and from there it just goes into chaos because
like when they're
she's really excited and really proud about getting to this woman's group, and she has the president over and everybody, and they're eating that custard and the blood squirts into the custard.
So creamy.
It's been so long since I've had a good custard. She doesn't make it for me.
The other thing I picked up on today that I didn't pick up earlier, Skull Island. That's Kong. That's King Kong. They took that from the home of King Kong.
Oh shit.
That's where King Kong lives, is Skull Island.
Yeah, you know that Peter Jackson is a huge King Kong fan because he did his own version of King Kong, and he did what was it, a sequel or a prequel with Skull Island. So he's a huge fan of that. And I'm what's up?
I don't think he did Skull Island. I think that was like a studio film. I think he just did the one.
Fair enough, but I mean, just the fact that he name drops apart from the original King Kong in this, he was kind of setting himself up. I want to do King Kong. I'm going to let people know that I'm knowledgeable about this film, and I want them to think of me when they come around. I mean, sure, it was very far in the future, that he wound up doing it, but he did it.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty incredible.
That is Lord of the Rings, like being familiar with his previous work, like this one, and Meet the Feebles, and fucking Street Trash. He did Bad Taste.
No.
It was Bad Taste. It was Bad Taste.
Bad Taste.
But yeah, like being familiar with that work, and then finding out that he was going to do Lord of the Rings, it was just like, wait, is that the same fucking Peter Jackson? And Lord of the Rings was incredible.
He needs to come back and do a horror movie.
Yes, he does. Yes,
no one makes him like him.
No.
I think that would be incredible if he did a straight up splatter film, because it would have a huge budget. It would have a big release. And the horror fans right now are primed for something like that. When you've got a film like Terrorizer 2 that gets a re-release a year later because it's garnered so much attention, and those movies are violent and gory, but they're not as fun. They're not fun like Dead Alive is, and Dead Alive is super fun and super silly, and you laugh from beginning to end. I love Dead Alive. It's so outrageous, and like the zombies aren't just zombies.
No.
They're funny.
Mother is the fucking doesn't die, dude.
Well, not only that, like they throw a bunch of like almost like Three Stooges level like slapstick in too.
Yeah.
Doesn't detract. Like that's such a fine line. Like you have to really get the right people to make that shit work,
Nailed it.
100% agree with that, because if they didn't have the right actors, if they didn't have the right cast to do this film, it wouldn't have turned out so stupendous, so legendary as it has. And it definitely is. Everything from the soundtrack to the acting to the gore to the comedy to the fantasy aspect, everything about this movie is perfect. And it surprises me every time when I think about it how it's gone out of print and it's not readily, nobody really knows it's streaming anywhere. Thankfully, you two have uncovered that it's streaming on YouTube. Thank you very much, both of you. I'm sure our listeners will be excited about that. But it is a shame that it's not more talked about. You don't see Dead Alive / Brain Dead merch by a lot of companies. You don't hear people talk about it as their favorite zombie movies or one of those zombie movies that people talk about a lot. And it's definitely one of mine. And I don't know why I don't talk about it enough. I don't think about it enough. Somebody talks about zombie movie, I do think about more off-kilter ones like Train to Busan or Shaun of the Dead. But Dead Alive, man, 1992, 31 years since this puppy hit American shores, too. I can't believe that this is just such a spectacular, fun movie. I give it 5 stars, and I wish that more people would watch this movie, because if they did, they would just blow their minds about how great this movie is, and that this is the same director, the same filmmaker that did Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and King Kong. Yeah, all these huge, big budget Hollywood films, which is funny. When I bought the DVD copy that I have, the wrapper on it said from the director of Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings was in the theater at the time. But I could only imagine some suburban mom finding that in Tower Records and purchasing it for their kids that love Lord of the Rings. But
Or Meet the Feebles.
Yes, yeah, because that's when I bought Meet the Feebles as well, because it had that same wrapper around it.
Imagine seeing the little puppets and being like, "Oh, the kids can watch this." Dude, that's terrible.
But when this one comes out, it's definitely, I'm not even going to hesitate to buy it. But Dead Alive, I give it 5 stars. Track down a copy, watch it on YouTube, do what you have to do to revisit Dead Alive, 31 years of madness. What do you guys give Dead Alive?
5 stars all day. If I could give it more, like I said, this one holds a special spot in my heart. It's perfect. It's the perfect fucking comedy horror movie. It's there's a reason why it's a cult classic and it's still being talked about 31 years later the way it is. And yeah, I would like to get a collector's edition if somebody releases that sometime soon. 5 stars all day.
I'm almost curious if maybe the studio doesn't want it resurfacing because now they have them doing such high profile shit. They're making all this money because he did all the Hobbit movies too. So that's like 6 gigantic big budget movies in a row. But yeah, 5 all day. Instant classic, unfuckwithable.
Yeah.
This thing fires in all cylinders. Everything works with this fucking movie. Go see it. If you've never seen Dead Alive, then I don't even know what you're doing listening to this shit.
It's true.
5 stars across the board from all of your favorite hosts here at Real File. So once again, if you haven't seen Dead Alive, watch it on YouTube. Track down a physical copy. Do what you gotta do to watch it. Put it in your eyeballs, because it is the best. Anyways, before we go, you guys got any last words to give out there to our listeners in Real Vile Land?
Easy,
Keep it sleazy.
If you didn't catch that, both Killer Kelly and Ruthless Chris said keep it sleazy. And me, your humble narrator, Mr. Germ T. Ripper, says keep it spooky, keep it scary, and keep it real vile forever. God bless America and send nudes.